Moving from survival mode to living. What does that mean? What does that look like? Why should you even care? I am right there with you. For a long time, most of my life, even probably like the majority of 3 decades, I had been living from the space of survival mode. And to be honest, I didn't even know that there was a different way to be. It was just so inherent, and it's what I saw all around me. So I didn't know that there was a different way to be. I didn't know that there was an alternate route. So I wanted to discuss that today. But before we get into the nitty gritty of all that, which I'm really super jazzed to talk about actually, I should probably introduce myself for those who I have not met yet. My name's Allison, and I'm the founder of the Pseudo Studio. And this is a design studio for reality bubbles. And yes, that seems perhaps a little bit esoteric, so I'll quickly explain it to you. My background is in architecture, interior design. I've been a designer since day one. But what I'm really most passionate about is applying those skills and that training to design a whole host of things. I have such a big place in my heart for the design of the built environment. I don't think I'll ever be able to give that up, but I view it as a symptom of larger things. So I like to think of things in terms of scales, and I believe that there are bigger scales at play even when a like interior design, architectural design, so a building, anything like that is a part of the solution. There's usually a much bigger undercurrent because it's a part of reality, and it's a part of reality that supports the larger bubble that it inhabits. And I'm super excited to offer my services, specifically applying the design process. And I have reimagined the design process for this new age of designing in this way. It is a trademarked part of my brand. It's called the Pseudo Solution, and this process is super important. If you really think about it, architects, interior designers, any kind of designer by trade, graphic designer, apparel designer, landscape architect, whatever. I know I'm leaving out a couple. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to offend anybody. We are like the ultimate manifestors. We're constantly taking something that only exists in our imaginations and bringing it into the material world. And it is this design process that we have and we use that helps us to achieve that. And my reimagining of it is to take a more holistic view of this, a more compassionate view of this, that isn't quite as linear, but still supports the process in integrity. So if any of that speaks to you, I would love to meet you and collaborate. I would encourage you to check out the link to my website down below. But for those who don't want to look at that, the website is www.thepseudostudio.com. Okay, enough of that. So why should you care about moving from survival mode to living, or what does that look like? What does that mean? So just for those who don't know, this is really a nervous system issue. And to say moving from survival mode to living is essentially to say moving from a sympathetic state of arousal, which is your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, etc., response, to parasympathetic being, which is an intrinsic state of wholeness, safety, and love, compassion. So, how does that get achieved? Honestly, for me, I was in therapy for many, many years, and coming at healing just from mind, from consciousness, and it just had me in a loop. So yes, the loop would get bigger, but I was still spiraling the same toilet bowl, essentially. I never got to venture outside of that. And I really struggled to find the missing piece. But what came to me was that I needed to incorporate a somatic practice into my well-being routine. And, looking back at that, that makes perfect sense. Like, your nervous system is in your body, your emotions, your trauma, all of it is stored here. Everything that's holding you back and cluttering you is in your body. This is a journey of unbecoming, not becoming. And for me personally, although I would encourage you to find whatever works for you, what resonates, what matters is more the alignment and if it excites you versus what I say. So take this with a grain of salt. But the most impactful practice for me was starting what is known as the Rosen method. And this is a form of body work, so there is light touch involved, and it is combined with like kind of talk therapy. Not that you're talking a lot. The goal isn't to like really move through experiences, talk through them, ruminate, figure things out. It's more that when something in the body is triggered, because once again, your emotions, your trauma, all of it is stored in your body. As the practitioner is, performing the body work on you, things will come up and they are prepared and interested in holding space for you to speak your truth and move through it, flow through it, release it. So incorporating that has totally shifted my life in a very short amount of time. Like, I'm talking 3 months. It's not only shifted my physical health, but basically how I define everything has completely shifted. My values have shifted. How I define love has shifted. How I define safety has shifted. How I experience my body has shifted. How I live my life and make my choices has shifted. So this has a profound impact on your life. And the beautiful part of this is that it's a passive process. Like, yes, I had to make the choice to start seeing this practitioner and spending money on this. But in doing that, the rest was easy. My body knew what to do. It knew how to release. It knew how to heal. It knew what needed to be said. And just decluttering all that gunk has landed me on this other side of the survival mode versus living fence. Now, I think this matters as an individual, like at the individual scale, but I'm also going to share that I think it matters if you are a designer, or forget about designer for a second. I think for anything that you show up fully for, so maybe that's your job, maybe you're a parent and one of your greatest desires in this lifetime is to build this beautiful family, that applies to this. And I would say that this work of healing your nervous system applies to those things as well, because it will not only change you, it changes how you create, how you relate, and how you build things. So as much as I would encourage you to do it for yourself, I am a big cheerleader for healthy narcissism. Like, yes, this should be about you first. You got to put your own mask on first. But it will also transform the external world around you too. Rising tides lift all boats. I truly believe that. So with that, that's quite a introduction. What does survival mode look like? Let's just explore that flavor of being for a second. Unfortunately, I'm too familiar with what that looks like. Although I'm just going to say this. If you find yourself in this space, there's nothing wrong with you. This isn't bad. And maybe this is where you are supposed to stay, or maybe you're supposed to grow out of it. Whatever it is, this isn't a moral judgment of you. I think this is how much of society lives. So this is just me sharing because honestly, I would have wanted to hear this when I was still in the throes of this way of being. And as much as I am talking to my past self in this, I also hope to be a cheerleader and source of support, a lighthouse for you. So, survival mode. Essentially, it looks like choosing things outside of yourself, inside of yourself, because you think they will lead to your happiness, your pleasure, your sense of safety, validation, whatever. So it really has this flavor of chasing. And this can look a lot of different ways. For me in my life, this has looked like chasing validation for my work. I used to be a really hardcore achiever. That's an understatement. And really had my self-worth tied to my grades, my performance, what people thought of me for a long time. And it was, like the term survival mode suggests, this roller coaster. There were seasons of bounty, right? Like when I did achieve what I wanted, when I got the validation I felt I deserved or that I was craving. And then there were moments when that wasn't the case, when I wasn't somebody's cup of tea, right? And it resulted in me living a rather inauthentic life. I was choosing to put out work that I thought people would like and would be received well by others, rather than what I really had on my heart to put out there. This also happens in relationships, of course. Like, look at how media portrays romantic relationships. Like, think of any romantic, like, rom-com ever. It's this really passionate, fiery, intense experience, and it really furthers the like values of intensity and passion in a relationship, rather than safety, truth, groundedness, like from a healthy, secure place. And that just goes to show you the values of society that are putting out that in media, in like mass media. So of course we all have come to the same way of being. It's surrounding us, and we're all consuming those messages from a very young age. But ultimately, like those relationships, and it's not just romantic relationships, it can be friendships, familial relationships, work relationships, whatever it is. But you're ultimately chasing a sense of pleasure, like in the case of those movies as an example, or safety. Like we see this all the time. It's a massive trope, is like especially feminine beings looking to men for a sense of safety. So you're looking for something outside of yourself to create that sense of safety. And love too. So, and also this happens in friendships. And the sacrifice in that is you're sacrificing your authentic self. And that's a hard pill to swallow now for me on the other side of that, but for a long time I self-abandoned. So with that, well, actually, give me one moment. I'm not done. Thank you for being on this journey with me. So this sympathetic state of being also manifests in, I would say, surface level coping. And this essentially means operating from this surface level way of being. And it really can look like performance, control measures, bypassing. And I would argue that this is because when you're operating from a sympathetic state of arousal, your sense of safety is coming from your ego. What do I mean by this? Your ego, I'm not here to demonize egos. I think they're an important part of each of us. But when they're in the driver's seat, they're there to protect you and keep you safe. And how this manifests as performance control bypassing. Performance could be, oh, I see your authentic self wanting to put out this project, but it's a little weird. So let's put out this more palatable project for consumption so that I can perform based on other people's wishes. Control. Ooh, control is a fun one. I think there's all sorts of different ways to come at this, but I think I'm going to take perhaps a controversial take on this. I am a recovering codependent, and I always will be. I don't think it's something you ever fully, the patterning will always be there, but it's about developing a relationship with it and an awareness of it. So I would argue that the other side of the spectrum, narcissism, like that's a lot about control, right? Codependency is as well. Empathy is as well. And you're trying to, well, let's back up a second. Codependency is essentially, I need you to be okay for me to be okay, right? And it's under this guise of good intentions and being concerned about the other person. And I do think empathy is a beautiful thing, but this flavor of it isn't coming from a place of unconditional love, which is about accepting things as they are and choosing to love them anyways. Codependency starts manipulating things to be a certain way so that you feel okay. So, like, especially as a child, if an adult in my life was really upset, let's say, I would tell them what they wanted to hear. And that's one, lying, so it's not being truthful, and thereby controlling, and it's also self-abandoning in the process. But it's your ego, once again, trying to keep you safe. And then bypassing as well. So post doing this work on myself, I realized that safety for me is really about not bypassing what's true. And that's at the scale of the internal for me as well as the external. And it starts with internal, of course. Everything starts at this micro scale of inside of you, and works its way outwards. And at the scale of inside of me, I learned through this process that if I am bypassing my own emotions and physical sensations, which are your truth, if it's in your body, it is true, it leads to an inherent sense of unsafety within me. And that also applies to my relationships. So if there is an 800-pound gorilla in the room with us, like let's say you and I, and we're both not acknowledging that, that's gonna really make me feel unsafe in our relationship. I think that truth and honesty and holding all of that, even when it's in confrontation of your ego, is what leads to safety. And I feel called to share a bit of a example that I've had in my own life. So I had a friendship that I shared my true, authentic feelings with. And I understand how that can trigger somebody to be defensive because it's not necessarily what you want to hear, and I honor that. But rather than holding space for that and just letting it be, because really sharing your truth isn't about attacking the other person. It's not about fixing things or changing things. It's just acknowledging what is and opening a door. Nothing needs to be done with it other than sitting in that space that the door has opened. And usually doing that leads to greater intimacy, greater love, greater respect for one another. And that's not what happened in this relationship, and that's okay, but I could see that their ego was coming up, and it was about like, I did this, I did that, I did my part, I was responsible, rather than just actually seeing me. So yeah, I think I have great empathy for people operating from this more sympathetic state. I honor it, and I acknowledge that I lived my life for much of this way, and I just so happened to fall through the looking glass to the other side of this. So I never want anybody to feel that this is wrong. It's just, there's a matter of alignment and misalignment. And when you begin to value your soul self and your authentic self more and more, and cultivate more love in that relationship with yourself, things that require you to self-abandon and sacrifice your truth and exist in that survival mode just start to turn you off. And once again, it's just a matter of alignment. So what does healing your nervous system change? The answer is everything. I didn't know that going into this, but if I could give you a short example of how things look on the other side, I would say this. So work, first of all, becomes a playground, not about proving yourself, not about performing. Visibility becomes about expression, once again, not about performance. You stop bracing for impact and you start breathing. You no longer fight your sensations, like your physical sensations, your emotions. You listen to them. They no longer signal a threat, they signal the truth. Wholeness becomes your new baseline. You don't need to fix yourself. You never did. You just finally stopped abandoning yourself. So this isn't about fixing you, and I'll admit this is something that once I started this process, probably about 2 years ago, I was very much guilty of. I thought I needed to fix all these parts of myself, and my life became about manifesting, essentially. I got really hooked on this idea that if I changed my internal landscape, I would change my external landscape. And that's true. That's most certainly true. But that's what my life became about. It was constantly like fixing this. I'm grateful for this skill. I could acknowledge that whatever was appearing in my external reality was a mirror for something happening in myself. And I would immediately be like, I don't like what's happening out there, so let me figure out what's happening in here and change it. And I took it so seriously, and I stopped really living and having fun. It was about, I became my own biggest project. I used to joke with my therapist at the time that I was Lenny from Of Mice and Men, and life was the bunny. So I feel like that probably gives you a better example of the energy I was giving off at that point in time. And on this other side of the fence, I have realized, oh, I am not here to manifest. I'm not saying that I'll never create and never work and never manifest again, but that's not the point. I'm here to live. I'm here to have the human experience. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to play. And that's so incredibly freeing. This isn't about fixing anything in me. I have realized that, like anybody, I have things I want to manifest. There are things that I want to do in this lifetime, to achieve, to be. I want to be a mom. I want to be a wife. I want to be a successful entrepreneur. And on this side of that fence, survival mode versus living, I realize that I am already that person that will manifest those things. Nothing about me and my current reality needs to change to bring those in. It was all about decluttering all the gunk that was on top of my authentic self. It was a journey of unbecoming. not becoming. So, yeah, this changes everything. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, healing my nervous system has changed my definition of love to just be presence and not changing anything, just being with, honoring what is. Safety clearly has changed. As I've mentioned in a previous video, it's about not changing anything. It's just about holding space and not bypassing, just acknowledging the truth. And how I operate and relate now is completely different. Also in a previous video entitled, "You Are the Altar, Not the Sacrifice," I mentioned how I had an epiphany that if I am the altar, what then is the offering? And what came through was, if the ego in self or in others is not on my altar, then I, my soul self, am the sacrifice. That shows you once again the shift from a sense of safety that comes from the ego to a sense of safety that's already just inherent within, and how it allows me to be with myself and be with others with compassion, with unconditional love, because I already am safe. I already am whole. I already am love. And really, just to sum this up, I would say this shift looks like making choices because, or let's say choosing things because you think they will lead to your happiness, your pleasure, your safety, validation, whatever it is that you want. And I'm not saying those wants are bad, but it's choosing those things outside of yourself to get that feeling, versus on the parasympathetic side of things, I am whole, I am safe, I am love, and I am choosing this thing because it aligns with that. It will create more of that. It will reflect more of that back to me. So I hope that this maybe helps you get your head around this. I know that this, for me, was such an esoteric concept, and of course there is no roadmap, but being somebody who's very cerebral, I had a real difficult time grasping this concept and what that would even look like. And I just really wanted to share this because it breaks my heart for my past self that she lived this way for so long. And it also breaks my heart for those who are living the way that I did without knowing that there is another way for you to be. So I truly hope that this is a little bit of encouragement and support, and I'm here on the sidelines cheering you on. If I can achieve this, if I can get here, you most certainly can too. And, try not to come at this from your mind so much. This is really ultimately about embodiment. And yeah, I'd be curious what your own experiences are with this. I would love to hear more in the comments below. Do you feel like you're still in survival mode, or are you now in this place of living? Are you curious about this? What have your experiences been like? I would truly love to know and hold space for you and your journey. So yeah, can't wait to interact with you and talk to you in the comments below. Okay, I hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.